Thank you for withholding your applause. What I was trying to do with this music is create a mood, a feeling in the room. I hope you felt it. This music that I do is actually played as medicine and not entertainment. My regular job is to play therapeutic music for hospitals and people who are in a lot of pain. And so it's not quite as amplified as it is here. This particular instrument is very unique. It's made by a rare tree, koa trees that only grow in Hawaii, and they are protected. The koa trees are not cut down to make instruments like this. They must die a natural death and fall to the earth, and then they are harvested. And this is actually very similar to a centuries-old tradition that harp players have done for a long time. If you didn't know, the harp is the oldest stringed instrument in history. And it is, we think, 20,000 years old. Scientists keep working on that one. It is the father, so to speak, of violins and guitars, so neener, neener. I always like to say that to folks who violinists especially. What is really interesting about the environment and things like musical arts is they are connected. They are human experiences, human enterprises that we've all done, okay, we've had around for a long time. So ecosystem services, there's a big word. It is the scientific analysis of what the environment gives to life, gives to people, to animals, how it keeps everything working. And so one factor of ecosystem services is to provide tools, food, and shelter. The harp would be a tool. Okay, so in this picture, there's a picture of a colleague of mine playing the harp at the bedside for a patient. And there's the koa tree. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. Okay, so let me see. Next one. Okay. I want to switch to DiamondBar because I've lived here for 30 years. And as I would come and go to work, my stressful job, coming home is such a beautiful experience because we have the canyons off the side of the road and look at the steep canyon here, the habitats here are so refreshing. The sound of the birds and everything's green. And for years, I really took all of this for granted, and I know it had a positive effect on cleansing me from the stress of my work. But to find out that our hillsides and our trees especially are diminishing made me look into what's going on here. And so this is what brought me on my environmental journey, is finding out what's happening local in my own community and how we can keep the quality of life sustained here. Ecosystem services. There's a lot to ecosystem services. It's a new word, but we already take it for granted. One of the first things that it gives to us, whether we know it or not, is it regulates climate. And a lot of people are wondering that big expanses of green areas like Tres Hermanos Ranch locally, or even the hiking trails that I personally don't have a lot of time to go up and enjoy, I see them from a distance. Those green spaces are natural habitats that make our temperatures cooler. They process rain runoff and refresh our aquifers, which supports our health. We have better health here because we have less stress, believe it or not. I know we have a lot of traffic. But we do benefit from these ecosystem services unconsciously. And we have cleaner air. I think the city of Diamond Bar just got a wonderful evaluation on their watersheds. So the stress relief is very important to us now because of all the traffic. We all love green space. We all want to be in a green place. Clean water, air, soil is a natural way of filtering all the pollution that humans just incur. And then, of course, the spiritual enrichment. I'm very inspired when I write music by just my backyard that has beautiful trees in it, and makes me feel very good. But the bad news is, I wondered, why all this overdevelopment just seems to be indiscriminately just wiping beautiful things out. I think we can all relate to the hillsides that just went away at the intersection of Grand Avenue and the 60 freeway, where the hills are just flattened. You guys have seen that, right? Okay. But I started doing a little history, and this is what I came up with. California native landscapes, now that means what nature put in California, we're here, okay, is actually a heritage, is really, really famous. We have all kinds of artisans and activists who began noticing the specialness of California landscapes back in 1890-ish. And this particular picture here is a picture of the Theodore Payne California Native Plant Foundation, which is out in Sun Valley. You must go. It is beautiful. And here's a little bit of history. John Muir, who was a British self-taught naturalist, he didn't come from university, he just cared about the beauty of trees. California landscapes were so famous that we had a lot of British folks come over, and I actually believe John Muir was Scottish, okay? And he was just in love with California landscapes, but they were being threatened by development. And so he was the first one, I think it was 1892, that founded the Sierra Club, and that was an effort to save Yosemite National Park. He was a very big advocate for national parks. So when you go to a national park, especially in California, you need to know this man is the one that saved those parks for us. We even had artists come from all over the world. California landscape art movement is a very, very big deal. It's making a comeback. This particular painting was done, I believe, in 1910. It's called Plein Air Painting, meaning people went out into the woods and just painted what they saw. So now that we have a lot of our landscapes developed, and I believe this is San Gabriel Valley here, these paintings are very important. The vintage ones are very important for historical information. Okay, so we're going to talk about biodiversity. Everybody heard that word yet? Raise hands. No? Okay, so here's my take on biodiversity. I'm going to try to get this right. Diversity, we know what that means, okay? Bio is living. Okay, so we have lots of different living things in California, in Diamond Bar. That's a good thing because these living things, the variety of living things you see on the chart here, you can see the relationship that all the living things have to each other. So you've got plants and insects. Everything starts with plants, okay? If you don't have native plants, you don't have native insects. If you don't have native insects, you don't have native birds. Every living creature is assigned a relationship in a certain way, in a certain place, with certain plants, okay? So more diversity allows life to continue, okay? Wait, I want to go back. Okay, where am I? Okay, more diversity, because I have to get to the bad part, right? Okay, more diversity allows life to continue, but less diversity equals extinction, which is the broader loss of habitat, or locally is extirpation. I just, that's kind of a nice word for saying die, okay? So when we have less diversity, like less varieties of birds or less varieties of insects, it's really not going to go well for the insects that are left. If they don't make it, then they finally go away. And we, as a people, as humans, we will go away someday if that keeps happening. And that's why we're all here. We need to fix that. Here is a map of the state of California. It's organized by ecological sections, or what we call ecoregions. And there's a lot going on there, and I don't see my indicator, but we are located in the bottom portion. Yeah, get the cursor over a little bit more, a little bit more. There, okay. And we're smack dab on the combination blue and purple. The purple is the south coast, no, Southern California mountains and valleys, okay? And the blue is the South Coast ecoregion, okay? And those ecoregions are scientifically identified and understood as having certain climates, certain plant and animal taxa, okay? And that's what makes our place a real place. You know, we have animals and plants here that exist nowhere else on the planet, okay, which is kind of cool. But see how the scientists have really mapped this whole thing out. And this is why we have wonderful scientists like the California Natural Diversity Database collecting all this data and trying to find out what we can do to stop global warming, to save our species, to preserve biodiversity. Okay, we're also located in the California Floristic Province. Gee, I said that without stumbling. Okay, it's really special. The California Floristic Province means, floristic means flower, right? Or it's actually vegetation. But it is really rare. It's one of, let me see, 5 areas in the world, 5, okay, that has the Mediterranean type climate in the world. And it's notified as a hotspot. Does everybody know what a hotspot is? Okay, biodiversity is good, hotspot's bad. Hotspot's bad because it means our land is threatened. It is already being destroyed, and we're in crisis mode. We have monarch butterflies going away. We have bees, honeybees going away. I think we've all heard about the honeybee shortage and everything. It's a bad thing, okay? I want to go back. I'm not done. Why does it do that? Okay. So let's talk about, I'm going to list some of the ecosystems here because this is going to apply to Diamond Bar. I'm going to be a teacher now. Okay, in Diamond Bar, we have sagebrush, prickly pear shrubland, coastal sage, chaparral. Now, they don't have it on this list, but we have oak woodland riparian and oak woodland savanna. Let me see. We have what is also called light chaparral. And what else do we have? Oh, grassland, native grassland. All right, and that's really special. These other habitats are elsewhere in the state, but I'm talking local. So when you see Steep Canyon, all those cactuses, that's the prickly pear sage scrub cactus. And that has a scientific analysis that demonstrates there are critters in that prickly pear stuff that only exist there. So if the prickly pear cactus goes away, the critters go away. And whether or not you hike and enjoy it, you're going to lose as a local community because you have dirtier air, dirtier water, less beauty, and all of that. Is that a clear concept with everybody? Because one of my friends said to me, Tres Hermanos Ranch, which is that giant, beautiful open space between Diamond Bar and Chino Hills, well, none of us can walk on it, right? It's all fenced off. Well, gosh, it's not good for anything because we're not there. Well, that area is what we call a freshwater emerging wetland, and it cleans the air and the water. Of course, it supports critters. We have golden eagles over there. It's very cool. But the other thing that's amazing is it regulates our temperature. Now, my question to everyone is, would you like it to get hotter here? I wouldn't. I think it's hot enough. And so, believe it or not, that big expanse of green area has so much to do with temperature regulation. And scientists are now even studying this in Los Angeles. We call it city heat, where they're doing studies about city heat. What do? Well, I say, let's save what we have first. That would be good. Let's start there. Okay, habitats preserve life. Like it or not, they do. If you're afraid of bugs, I know some people in Diamond Bar hate those tarantulas. I have centipedes in my garden, and they're just there, okay? They all play a part. All the plants and the animals and the insects have what we call a specialized or a specialization assignment, meaning they need natives and natives need them. And we need all of that to have a high quality of life and, in fact, to survive. If the habitat goes away, the butterflies, bees, and birds die. Extinction contributes to the overall decline of all ecosystems in the world, and that is why our ecosystem here matters to the global assessment of, you know, the California Floristic Province and the biodiversity hotspots. Here we are. There's the red circle. I did it. Aren't you proud? Okay, there we are. And look at all these green areas. These are biodiversity hotspots in the world, meaning they're critical. We're in crisis mode. Oh my goodness, we need to do stuff right away. And so there we are. Okay, now one of my projects is to actually interact with local cities. DiamondBar, as a Sierra Club Task Force Chair, I actually advocate for open space in many cities, and including my own home city. This particular project here, this is a city project. It's called Millennium, and it's a luxury home project. It's behind the country, so nobody sees this, but look at these oaks, all right? Now, this particular picture is of, I think, 20 100-year-old oaks that were bulldozed with no mitigation plan, meaning no plan to put them back that we know of. You know, there was a lot of talk about it. We haven't seen anything. Now, I'm going to tell you about oak trees. The scientific function of an oak tree is it pulls carbon out of the air. Like one oak tree pulls 55,000 pounds of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and sequesters it and stores it, okay? Go back there. Okay. My point is, these oaks here that got wiped out, I did the calculations. I think there's 20 trees times 55,000. I came up with 1,210,000 pounds of carbon that we lost mitigation for, all right? Give or take a few numbers. But I wanted, it's not just the pretty trees. It's not just the animals that lived in these trees. It is the air that I breathe, I'm sorry, many neighborhoods away. I'm not in this neighborhood, but the city as a place has lost these ecosystem services. This is another picture of Millennium Project. This is 80 acres that used to have oak trees. I think I have the picture. We counted them, and I think the loss of these oak trees was about 1,000, okay? So you can just do the math on the carbon sequestration on that. So it is irreparable biodiversity damage. And by the way, I believe the bottom oak trees are scheduled to be removed. Right now, this project's on hold. If you want to know more, please talk to the city. Talk to the planning department. They know everything. Okay, this is important. Since this happens in a lot of cities, but specifically to my hometown, since incorporation, I did some research on the history. The city of DiamondBar really doesn't have any habitat protection practices that work. There's a lot of talk, but there's really nothing that happens. And so it is woefully inadequate. It's way below what the California conservation regulations require. To date, biodiversity loss continues, okay, until the public starts asking about this and looking into it like our Sierra Club Task Force is doing. There really is no city conservation element implemented. Now, there's development all the time, but there's no conservation. And I'm here to tell you that's really up to the citizens, because cities are corporations. What they do is develop for money. And that's true of all our cities locally, okay? Citizens, if you want to keep your quality of life, you've got to do something. And that's why I think the Sierra Club, what we're doing is pretty focused and pointed. We are trying to intervene on specific things. Our community stands to lose its unique identity and quality of life. And so I'm here today to put down two important solutions, possible solutions to this big question. What's our plan B, okay? I think number one, we all need to advocate open space conservation because we need you. I go to city talks all the time. I'm getting more people, that's okay. I'm not complaining, but I'm here to tell you and teach you why this is so critical, why it's just really serious. And so we want to save what is here, okay? And that's why we want Tres Hermanos to be saved as a natural open space, a regional park that would be protected in perpetuity. Another idea is California native landscapes. They are our heritage, okay? Look at the house in the picture there. That's not my house, by the way. But look, there's no lawn. They've put in plants that belong here, that nature put here. And they're loving it. There's 70% less water, no kidding. Native plants are not the same as drought tolerant. Native plants are native. You could get an Australian drought tolerant plant or an Asian or African drought tolerant plant, but they're foreigners. No, I know we're into diversity, but we need diversity in native landscapes, just like those other countries. Native landscapes in Australia are now being advocated for because they see the same problem. The landscape industry has messed everybody up by selling plants from different areas to different areas, and it's a mess. So the science, the biological science works in each location very specifically. So we're in California, we're in Southern California, and this homeowner has done the right thing, and it's incredible. They have all the birds and butterflies and bees working in their functional landscape, which is their heritage. The picture to the right and the picture, the other three pictures, that's my yard. Now, I'm really lucky. I have an acre. I have oak trees and sage scrubs. And after years of my ornamental landscape failing because it needed too much water, too much weeding, for whatever reason the plant didn't like being here, a few years ago I just turned off my sprinklers and I let everything die. And I thought, well, I'm going to see what really is going to survive. All my natives survived. And what really blessed me, if you look at the hill, the bottom left there, nature put back more natives. It's like when I took away the ornamentals, the ice plant, which is really bad stuff, the natives came back. And I have California gnatcatchers and all kinds of sensitive species on my own property in a residential suburban neighborhood, which is really neat. And I also feel good that I'm being fully green, because if everybody did this in my neighborhood, or even half of us, we would be beginning to rebuild the habitats in each landscape. Do you get that? So we'd be building a patchwork of biodiversity, and we'd be replacing the lost biodiversity. And not only that, you'd be really loving it because you wouldn't have to pay for landscaping or water. I mean, the water bill is, I think I have a $30 water bill. It's really low. But when you have an established habitat, you have a living garden. It's alive. It's doing its thing. It's functioning. On the right, oh my gosh, this butterfly is endangered. And it came back when I put in the one plant it needs, which is this milkweed here. It cannot live with any other plant. So at the big box stores, don't buy butterfly plants. They aren't really butterfly plants. They're pretty, but they don't really serve the food and survival needs that this butterfly has. I think this is a blue streak. It's a blue streak. Anyway, I'm really bad with names, but this one is a rare butterfly, and I can't believe I got that picture. So all of these creatures that are in the California landscapes have a purpose. That's the point I'm trying to get at. We, as a consumeristic culture, we tend to look at everything decoratively or economically. Okay? Landscape industry, they pay almost nothing for plant material that they sell us, and that's why they say money-back guarantee. It's like fast food. They will replace it no problem because it keeps dying. And one of the landscape guys at the big box store I won't name, the manager, I asked him once, why don't you carry more natives? And he said, if I did that, I'd be out of business in 6 months. So that's sustainability, just economic-wise. But think of all the good that we're doing. Think of the good that you can do right where you stand. I have a friend who has a condo who has a patio, not a big yard like mine. And she installed a Cal native potted plant and a bird bath and other little shrubs in her patio, and it's beautiful. And she's got all kinds of little hummingbirds in there and a couple of lizards. And so that little island of habitat matters in her community, in her condo community. And she, of course, enjoys it. Now, what can we do? We can do things individually. And at my booth today, at the Sierra Club booth, we have lots of references, free references for Cal native plants. But I want you to know that whatever your opinions are, you want to do something smart. You know, join a group that deals with local issues, because you can really be powerful local. It's really hard to save polar bears. I love polar bears, but I vote, and you know, I can send money, but I'm not in an area where polar bears are. But in our area, we have California gnatcatchers, coastal wrens, golden eagles. We have 140 species I won't name right now, but they are on the brink. That devastation we saw with the oak trees took out screech owl and a rare snail. Now, everybody thinks snails are bad, right? What do you say? Snails are bad? No, they're good. Native snails do not eat flowers. They are like little miniature garbage disposals, and they turn over dead leaf litter. So you don't throw your dead leaves away. Little native snails are there to decompose the dead leaf litter, okay? And they really are very rare and protected now. I guess it's a big fine if you harm them. And that particular project killed a few of them because we found them. But you want to be aware of life in your green space. So green space is not all equal. A lot of us think, you know, golf courses are great. Well, lawns are toxic. Lawns are big expanses of pesticides and fertilizers that taint the water, run off, and go all the way out to the ocean and poison our fish and us too. So we got to get rid of the fertilizers and the pesticides. Cal native plants need no pesticides and they need no fertilizers and soil amendments and all that. They're natural, they belong here. So I encourage everyone to find out more about Cal native landscapes, Cal native plants. Know that there's a difference between drought tolerant. Drought tolerant doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing for the habitat. It could be invasive. It could be the kind of plant that is so powerful it will just wipe out the natives. And that's what a lot of foreign plants do. And so just learn those little differences if you have a yard landscape. And if you're thinking of changing your landscape over, we have help. We have people counseling us and working together in garden clubs. And so our little Sierra Club is a pipeline to getting more educated about Cal native plants. And it is our heritage. So we would like you to join us and link arms and save the habitats that are here in our local area and reconnect by creating a habitat in your own place wherever it is. Thank you so much.